What's the one thing traditional music education gets catastrophically wrong?
It's the methodology. People cite frustration with the method of skill acquisition in music education.
Can you describe flow?
You're in the groove and you're just going and you forget about time, and it just you're in the middle of something, whether that's performing a task or learning a task. That's not, a lot of people don't think about that. What is necessary for flow within any task is the perfect balance between your skill and the challenge that you're tackling. The challenge needs to be just a little bit outside of your comfort zone. It's called just-in-time learning. It's a concept that is really, really cool, and I love it. A lot of video game tutorials do this these days, where the tutorial is not a big old dump right at the beginning of the video game. No, it is you're playing the video game, and they slowly but surely introduce new concepts to you through gameplay. And then you immediately apply that new concept, whether that's a new tactic, a new battle tactic, or a new move that you've just been able to unlock, or whatever it may be. You immediately apply it right then and there, just in time learning.
The way that we're learning with technology, the way that we're living with technology now, the way that we learn should be different as well.
I think it's going to it's inevitable that technology is going to slowly but surely become a part of our educational systems. It's happening. It's inevitable, in my opinion.
What's up, dreamers and doers, and welcome back to the Dope Living podcast, where we explore what it means to thrive in the age of intelligence. I'm your host, Janay, and today's conversation is about something unexpected: music education. What we're talking about today is based on a shocking statistic. Research shows that 80% of music students drop out before completing their education. The first major surge happens at the age of 11, and by the ages 15 to 17, most are gone. But why? Because traditional music education, repetitive practice, uninspiring methods, loss of autonomy, kills motivation. My guest, Patrick Boylan, a multi-instrumentalist, entrepreneur, and co-founder of Museflow, often called the Duolingo of music education. Patrick's story is fascinating. He spent 8 years in traditional piano lessons and hated every minute. When his teacher retired, he started to teach himself and selecting music he loved, improvising, experimenting. That self-directed approach not only made him fall in love with music again, but led him to discover something revolutionary. Today, Patrick can sight read virtually any musical theater composition, which blows my mind. And his frustration with traditional methods inspired him to build Museflow, a platform that uses AI, gamification, and neuroscience to keep students in a flow state while they learn. The results: students stay engaged, they master skills faster, and actually enjoy the process. But here's why this matters for anybody who's listening today, not just for musicians. The neuroscience of flow states, the psychology of skill acquisition, and the principles of gamified learning apply to everything. Whether you're building a business, learning a language, mastering a craft, Patrick's insights will change how you approach this type of growth and skill acquisition. Here's the data to kind of back all of this up. So flow states increase performance by 400 to 500%, reduce cognitive load, and make hard tasks feel effortless. Research from Drexel University found that high flow performers show reduced activity in the brain's frontal lobes, less conscious control, and increased activity in the auditory and sensory regions. The translation: your brain works better when you let go. So today we're asking questions such as, what's the thing that traditional education gets wrong? What are the design systems that keep us in flow states? What happens when your brain is in the zone? And how do we trigger that state more often? And where are we headed in the age of AI? And what does gamified learning tech look like? So Welcome, Patrick. I know that was a mouthful, and don't mind me because I'm no sort of neuroscience expert, but I am fascinated with neuroscience. So I'm really excited to have you talk about this and teach our listeners a few things.
Oh my God. Well, thank you for having me. And what an intro. I love the stats. You pulled them out. You did it. It's so good.
I did. I did. Thank you so much. So, we're going to start our first segment. It's called the 86% dropout crisis. So, let's talk about this statistic. You were one of them until you weren't. What's the one thing traditional music education gets catastrophically wrong?
It's the methodology. People cite frustration with the method of skill acquisition in music education. They say that it's frustrating because they're not feeling like they're truly learning. They're learning bite-sized skills. Yes, they are, but they're learning them in isolation. They're learning them within the context of one specific song, and that's it. They have to master that one song. They have to repeat the same things over and over and over to perfection. And then their teacher will stamp an approval. You got that right. Or you didn't play it to perfection, and you got to go practice the same song over and over and over until you get it perfectly. This process does not allow for proper fundamental skill acquisition, and then subsequently the application of that skill to a broad spectrum of contexts. That's how we learn. That's generally how we should learn, right? And so we aren't allowed that within music education.
Got it. So it's not that kids don't want to learn music, and I'll go back to even my childhood, right? Because I went to piano lessons, and I had the same I resonate with the same experience you had. I absolutely hated it, right? And my grandmother had a piano in her living room. Certain songs I could do, and I think we all could do it because it was the very easy ones, but um never really understand why I could not stick to it. But it's not that we didn't want to learn music. It's just you would say that it was really the systems that killed the love for it.
Yeah. Instead of that frustration where you feel like you're not really learning these skills and then you're given progressively to more difficult pieces. So you're just learning how to practice a song. At that point, you're not learning the fundamental skills. That sort of frustration or boredom with the way that you're being taught. And again, the key phrase here, the way that you're being taught. It's not about playing. People are loving it. People really enjoy that. It's the problem is with the methodology. They're bored with having to repeat the same things over and over and over. It didn't work with my ADHD brain. It doesn't work with a ton of people out there. 85%, as you said, 86 drop out at the end of high school, and they cite frustration and boredom with the methods of what they were kind of brought up in.
Yeah. So then let's talk about your transformation. Let's take us back to your story. So you spent 8 years in traditional piano lessons, and then your teacher retired. What happened in that moment that changed everything for you?
Well, I still wanted to play. I was at that point where I still very much enjoyed just sitting down and playing. I wasn't really at that point where I could play a full song that I very much enjoyed yet. I was a terrible student. I was terrible. I didn't practice. My parents had to ground me because I was like not practicing. And they were like, no, you have to practice. You committed to this, Pat. You got to practice. And so I had to, begrudgingly. So what ended up happening was my teacher retired and I was left alone to my own devices. And so I was like, I am determined to learn a song. All right. So I pulled open my parents' sheet music. They had a bunch of musical theater scores because they were musical theater nerds themselves. And so I flipped open a score and I started reading a song. I started going note by note by note. I was terrible at it. It was way too difficult for me. But I found little chunks that I very much enjoyed, whether that was a little phrase or a little motif, something in the patterns that I really enjoyed in the hands, being able to play it that way, or I really enjoyed the melody, or I really much enjoyed the chord progression that was underneath it. Whatever it may be, I was drawn to these little tiny micro skills, these little phrases. And so what I ended up doing was, this just happened organically, closing the sheet music, memorizing that little tiny phrase, and putting that phrase in a multitude of contexts, improvising around it. I put it in the left hand. I put it in the right hand. I inverted it. I flipped it. I rotated it. I horizontally, vertically. I slowed it down. I sped it up. I changed the key. I changed the time signature. I really enjoyed it and I fleshed it out. It was very flow. It was just continuously playing and organically putting it in all these different environments. And so I did that for years, where I just started playing a song verbatim, reading note by note by note, and I found a little phrase that I really enjoyed. And I took that phrase out, put it in my mind, and I just improvised around it for, 20, 30 minutes, just really enjoying that phrase, creating my own compositions. And that was how I ended up teaching myself the fundamentals, those core skills that every song is built from. Those little phrases that I was taking out of context and putting them in all these different contexts, I realized were the building blocks of musical theater. Cut to college. All this, musical theater students, I was the only acting major that could play piano. And so all of these musical theater students came up to me and were like, hey, Pat, can you play this one song? I really want to practice it for rehearsal. I'd never seen the song before. They threw it in front of me and I could play it. And I realized that those little phrases that I was repeating and putting out of context, putting inside all these other contexts, those were the building blocks that made up that song. And so when I saw it in another song, I was able to replicate it because I had already fleshed it out in all of these different contexts.
Got it. How does that transpire with kids or with someone that maybe just figured that music wasn't for them after all, but they moved over to like a sport, for example? How is, I guess the concept there is the flow state, right? Because you're talking about the flow state. And you built Museflow around students in that zone where challenge becomes skill. So can you start by describing flow for the audience? And then what are some misconceptions around flow?
We've all pretty much felt it. I'm assuming you felt it sometime in your life where you're in the groove and you're just going and you forget about time. And it just, you're in the middle of something, whether that's performing a task or learning a task. That's not, a lot of people don't think about that. Flow can be found within education. And that's kind of what we're doing in Museflow. We're taking the concept and we're putting it inside of education. And I was able to find it in my own skill acquisition. And so what is necessary for flow within any task is the perfect balance between your skill and the challenge that you're tackling. The challenge needs to be just a little bit outside of your comfort zone. Humans need a challenge. We all need it.
Yeah.
And so we find flow when we're just challenged just a little bit, just enough, so that it keeps us engaged. It keeps us engaged with the process of doing. The other thing is immediate real-time feedback that you can immediately apply afterwards. It's not, let's perform something and then we'll do a diagnostic of how you've done. And that'll take, your performance will take a chunk of time, the diagnostic will take a chunk of time, and then you move on to something else, and then you do another diagnostic. And then maybe you have to reincorporate what you messed up in the first lesson later down the road. No, this is immediately applicable feedback. So you do something, the way that we kind of think about it, the way that we do it is, it's called just-in-time learning. It's a concept that is really, really cool, and I love it. A lot of video game tutorials do this these days, where the tutorial is not a big old dump right at the beginning of the video game. No, it is you're playing the video game, and they slowly but surely introduce new concepts to you through gameplay. And then you immediately apply that new concept, whether that's a new tactic, a new battle tactic or a new move that you've just been able to unlock or whatever it may be. You immediately apply it right then and there, just in time learning. So you learn it just in time to be applying it. And so that's also a very key factor of flow state.
I love this topic because, one of the challenges and, talking from education standpoint, one of the challenges we have, and I'm sure it's not isolated to where I'm at, but the education system is just outdated. And then we are trying to figure out and complain about why the grade average might be lower than we expected or what's really going wrong. And what you're introducing are these more, I don't know if to say like they're more up to date in terms of they are with the times, right? Because I'm sure when you start to think about the way that we're learning with technology, the way that we're living with technology now, the way that we learn should be different as well.
I think it's going to be it's inevitable that technology is going to slowly but surely become a part of our educational systems. It's happening. It's inevitable in my opinion, right? Somebody creates something that's more cost effective and is like a little bit more effective or a little bit under effective. The administration is going to say, well, it's good enough. We're saving a ton of money. So to lower the value of this education by just a hair while increasing our profit margins, they're going to take it, you know.
Right.
Problem.
But there's
Go on. Sorry, please.
But the problem becomes when they try to fit the old education system just onto the computer, right? Versus starting to apply some of these things that we're learning. Like, you bring a great point in terms of the video game approach with just-in-time learning, for example, or just-in-time demonstrations. That, I believe, is where education needs to go. But the fear that I have is that we're just going to try to now fit the education system, just like read this, and there's no neuroscience to it.
They're not updating the curriculum and the methodology. No, they're just porting it over into a technology.
Right.
Yeah, that is a major problem. I see that all the time in schools. Here's the thing, though, I give it a ton of grace. I really, really do, and because the way that we've been taught, we've been doing that way for thousands of years. We've been teaching the same way for hundreds, if not thousands of years. People sit in a classroom, there's a lecturer, somebody teaches you what's going on, you ingest it, you then apply it later down the road, right? Or you do lessons in a classroom. Like that is the way that humans have been teaching themselves for decades. And so I give it a lot of grace because it's very difficult to change an institution or change a methodology that is steeped in tradition for that long, right? In my opinion, it's inevitable. It's going to be slow. It's going to be a journey. It really will be to reinvent the methods of skill acquisition or, teaching. It's going to take time. But if there is a new technology out there that is better and more effective than current skill acquisition in a certain institution, I hope that people will get a chance to try it out. And, thankfully, there are a lot of teachers out there that are trying Museflow, and they're using it with their students, and they're liking it. It does change the lesson at a core fundamental way instead of it being this like rote, okay, repeat that again. No, you're doing it wrong. Repeat that. We're going to slow it down. Okay, repeat that again. Great. Like instead of that drill sergeant within a lesson, we're changing it into a coaching environment where it's outsource the teaching of technique to Museflow. Go home. This is your homework. Go home, learn levels 1 through 4, and then come back and we'll practice the repertoire, the songs that get unlocked after that. We'll practice those in lesson. And you're already there as a student because you've already learned the skill outside the context of song. You've already learned it outside the context of song so that when you see a song that uses that skill, you can immediately apply it. You're already so much closer to proficiency at that song than if you started at base level 0 and just trying to learn that song by rote.
Yeah.
So that's the idea here, is that we're improving the quality of education but we're also kind of reinventing the lesson. So it is kind of a hard sell. Don't get me wrong. It is a hard sell. There's a lot of people that are like, I'm afraid of this. This is very different than the way that I was taught. This is very different than the way that I like to teach. No. I'm not going to do it. But then there are a lot of other people that are like, let me give it a shot and let me see what's up. And they try it out themselves and they're like, this is really cool. And it works really well. Okay, I'm going to use it with some students. And then the students really like it. And so you're like, it's slow. It's a
Mm-hmm.
slow progression, but I do think, I think it's tending that way. It's trending to the side of let's find new technologies that are effective and also very fun. Gamification is a whole different thing, right? Let's find
Yeah.
new methods that are fun and effective, and let's incorporate them in the classroom. It's slow, but it's happening.
So let's step back and talk about the methods of skill acquisition. I think that would be really important to kind of break down what are some of the new methods that you are either that you're currently employing, that you're let and what your prediction of the future, or if you could look into the future, what are some of the methods that are going to be at the top of the list?
A lot of people have already started including gamification into skill acquisition. Um,
Hmm.
you look at Duolingo, you look at other language learning models. There other language learning methodologies. They do a lot of this trying to get you into flow and trying to do just-in-time learning where you learn a new skill and then you immediately apply it. And the gamification is what feels like to me a little bit more external than I would like. The external validation of a star or a little badge that says you've done X, Y, and Z, congratulations. It just feels a little superficial to me.
Yeah.
What we've done at Museflow is tied the dopamine hits that you get not to external validation, not to those stars and those badges. No. We've tied it to actual skill acquisition. We've tied it to the moment that you actually feel yourself learning a new skill. You go through a level, and the levels are full of new material that you've never seen before, and it is constantly repeating. It's never repeating and constantly generating with new material. So it's called sight reading, the act of reading music at first sight, right? So we give you music that is right there in that pocket where your skill matches the challenge, and we say, go, get that tempo going, and you start playing, and you start going, and the music is always changing. And you have to play 4 phrases of music in a row at the goal tempo, the goal pace. You have to play it at 95% accuracy to be able to pass the level. That right there, what we've heard from users time after time is that they actually can feel the aha moment of they're playing, it's difficult. They lower the tempo. Okay, great. It's actually much easier now, but they're still challenged a little bit. Maybe they're at 80% accuracy, right? And then they slowly but surely get better. Slowly but surely their accuracy goes up and up and up over the course of the minutes that they're playing. And they're always playing. They're just fingers on the keys. This never ends. And they're going and they're going slowly at 95% accuracy. Okay, great. Well, let me raise the tempo then. Let me get back to that goal tempo. Awesome. And now they're playing, and it's a little difficult, but they're slowly increasing in ability, and they're slowly getting better. And they're like, oh my God, I'm getting it. I'm actually getting it. They hit 95% accuracy. They feel it click, and boom, you pass the level. The dopamine hit is immense at that moment because you're tying it directly to the moment that you've actually acquired that skill. So it's those kind of concepts that I wish people thought about in other technology and other ed tech technologies is
Exactly.
how do we facilitate those aha moments? I'd
Right.
love to see other technological solutions other than music sight reading, and you have to proficiency. You have to get 95% accuracy at the goal tempo. You have to get 4 phrases in a row to pass that. I'd like to see
Right.
other technologies doing something similar, just in a different, I don't know, a discipline other than music. I'd be very curious to see what that looks like.
Well, one can argue that that's what video games kind of does, right? That it brings that kind of feeling or that dopamine hit as well. And why wouldn't you apply that to apply that from an education perspective, right? And so I do think that, like you said, we're getting to that point, but we need to talk more about how do we marry the technology and the methodology there to the education system, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just bringing that old school way of of thinking to it, because you've got a lot of students that are still being alienated because they're everyone's being taught in the same way, right?
Yeah.
And we're expected to learn the same way, and the truth is that we don't. But if we've got kind of a near universal perspective in we are how our brain works when we're challenged a little bit, when we are in flow state, and trying to figure out how to then bring in kind of this alienated group that may not learn the way that has been done for thousands and thousands of years, as you've brought up, you know?
Yeah. We're doing a very kinesthetic sort of skill acquisition because playing an instrument is very kinesthetic. It's very tactile, right? You're using your fingers to play something that your vision is processing. You're putting that in your body and you're producing a sound. It's a very tactile, very kinesthetic process of skill acquisition. And so I'm wondering what other ways, so many people learn differently. Personally, I don't learn the best through just reading something on the page and then being able to regurgitate that. That is not me. That's not why I did not do that well in school. I realized later down the road that I was much more of an auditory learner. I can digest information so much better through simply just listening to it than I can from reading it. And I realized that too late. If I learned that in high school, then I would have been a better student because I would have optimized my learning methodologies, my consumption of knowledge. I would have optimized it for an auditory experience rather than reading it on the page. Now we have tools out there that can actually do that.
Well, let's talk about those tools, because I think it's a really important point. What are some of the tools or some of the, I guess, things that people can do to people with young kids, for example, or even as a grown up, you're like, I actually never really figured out what my learning methodology is. Where can I go, or what can I do to learn that or find that out?
I should know specifics. I should. I don't know exactly the tools that you can go and use, but I do know that there are a bunch of tools out there that allow you to learn which method is easiest or which method is better for you when it comes to skill acquisition. Whether that's auditory, whether that's by sight, whether that's kinesthetically by doing, right? By doing the thing. Or is it by visual, by actually looking on the page? Or is it by speaking it, Maybe you have to actually speak it out loud for you to do it. Maybe you actually have to write it down, which a lot of that was like note-taking, right? That's why we kind of really engaged that in traditional learning. But for me, it was auditory. And I didn't know that until much later down the road. You can definitely have your kids go through a program. They're free online. I've seen them. Psychologists have put them up there, and they're just little tests that just test your kid on what is their dominant form of skill acquisition. What way do they like to learn best? And so I think that is something that is very important to know early on. What is the dominant form that you prefer when it comes to learning something, right? And so get tested early, figure that out. Always push yourself. Always read. Don't stop reading, Always push yourself. I read before I go to bed. But I don't read a lot. I read a couple pages, but I still read, Yeah. I'm not necessarily learn by doing. Granted, I literally created a program that does that, but I still do that. I still learn songs the traditional way, which is going note by note by note and repeating that phrase over and over until perfection and then moving on. I still do that. And Museflow does still do that. It's just after you've learned the skill. That's the most important thing. So learn your dominant form early on and then find tools that can help you actually optimize your learning experience for that. For example, there are, for auditory learners like myself, there are programs out there that can, you scan the PDF with your phone. You just take a picture of it and it just takes the words and it can say the words back to you in a voice that you decide to choose, whatever the kind of voice you want, right? There are programs out there that do that. use one of those programs. If I had one of those programs in college, man, I would be a different person.
I know, right?
You know, so optimize your learning experiences that way. Find the little, you know, find how you learn and then optimize your learning experience for that way by using the tools that are available at your fingertips. You know, there are so many out there, and they're really good. A lot of them are very, very good.
So let's talk about Museflow in terms of the innovation aspect. What would you say is the, I guess, then the standout kind of innovation that you've captured when it comes to all of this, all of these, I guess the dominant or the way that you adapt or acquire skills. Let's say.
Yeah, I mean, the traditional way that we acquire skills in music is, as I said, here's that song. Your teacher gives you a song, says, go repeat this for me, was boredom. Repeat this to boredom. Get it perfect. Learn it by rote. And then come back to me the week later. And then we'll mark it correct or we'll mark it wrong. And you have to go back home and practice that same song again. Or we'll give you a new song with a new skill that you need to learn. And then you have to go practice that thing over and over and over to perfection. And then you'll get marked off correct or wrong. And the process continues. Right? Right. That's the traditional way of learning. Instead, we at Museflow have put the skill acquisition inside of sight reading. We give you a new note or a new rhythm, and we say, here is music that practices that little note or rhythm in isolation. Have a couple notes outside of that, right? One or two maybe on the other side of each of the note or the rhythm. We throw in a couple new rhythms right there, just easy ones, so that you can actually practice that right off the bat. Here's the new note. Let's immediately apply it. Okay? So we give you music that you've never seen before that never repeats, and you continue flowing until you've mastered that note or rhythm within isolation. Great. That's the first tier of that level. The second tier of the level is let's incorporate that into the context of the music that you've already learned up to this point within the curriculum. So, for example, level 5 it's G in the left hand, okay? We start off from middle C, both thumbs on there, and we go out from there, adding in a note on each side of middle C until we get to G in the left hand. The first tier is going to be just the left hand. We work on that G inside the context of what you know in the left hand already. Great. Now let's add the right hand in, all right? This is all what is called monophonic, which is one note after another. Mono, single, phonic, sound, one note. And then the third tier within that level is going to be polyphonic, multiple notes at one time. And so we increase the difficulty just a little bit. You've already learned polyphony before that. You've already learned monophony before that. So that's already great. We're not adding a new skill here. We're just incorporating G in the left hand into what you've already learned up to this point. So yeah, that's how we do it. We do it in isolation first. You master the skill in isolation. We increase the complexity, for lack of a better term. We increase the complexity a little bit more in the next tier, and then we increase the complexity a little bit more in the next tier, and then you've mastered that new skill within the context of what you've already learned. And then songs get unlocked. After that work, that skill, but it's in the context of everything that you've learned so far. So you're really just performing that new skill at that point because you've already acquired the skill of that new note. So we're adding a new step before songs. We're adding that sight reading step before songs. It's a sight reading first curriculum. Nobody's ever been able to do this before, though, because we've never had the technology to be able to generate a near infinite amount of sheet music at a very specific skill level. We've never been able to do that. And so with the advent of algorithmically generated music and the technologies that we've created that are proprietary, we've linked up all of these phrases that work this one specific skill within the context of that very specific tier. Yeah, again, the advent of technology has allowed this methodology to be born, and we're just the ones that have executed on it. So we find we're putting sight reading first. That's the thing. And nobody's ever been able to do that, though, because they've never been able to generate a near infinite amount of music at a very specific skill level. So, yeah, that's how we're flipping it on its head.
And so what's one reason this skill is so transformative, not just for music, but let's say for other types of learning as well?
I think the idea of just-in-time learning is kind of revolutionary if you can implement it in the right way. If you can give somebody a skill, I don't know, like maybe some sort of math concept, right?
Mm.
You give them a new skill in mathematics, and then you say, let's immediately apply it. But it's not in the context of like, I don't know. It's hard for me to describe it because I'm not a mathematician. And so I'm wondering what it would look like. But for music, it is, let's learn that skill outside the context of song. So you're not learning it by rote. That's the biggest thing. You're not learning it by rote. You can't just memorize the phrases. No, you've got to really learn that skill. And then you go learn songs.
Yeah. So I'm guessing you've got to really know the concept, right? Like, what is X plus Y and the brackets? Like, what makes up that computation, let's say? And sorry for the mathematicians out there who's like, that's not called a computation. That's something else. But you know what I mean? You know what I mean? That that phrase, whatever it is. I'm not a mathematician either. But understanding why that is what it is, and then you can start to apply all of these other the figures to it.
Yeah, right. Whatever. Like the gamification aspect, the external validation of like the stickers and the stars. I actually wonder, I've thought about this a little bit with history, because I wonder if just-in-time learning could work very well in a history class. Basically, it's here's something that happened in history, and then here is the context of why that happened and how it happened. And then let's find other examples throughout history of humanity, where that has happened over and over and over, and then try to understand the contexts of why that thing happened in the first place over and over and over, you know? I don't know. It's just kind of an idea of like, it's holistic understanding is really what it is. It's this bottom up understanding of here's an idea. Let's truly flesh out the context of how that idea emerged or that action of society. Why did it happen? Let's truly understand the context of it. And then let's apply that sort of methodology of understanding to other historical events. That's just another kind of form of what we're doing in a way, which is here's a new skill. Here's the context of how that can be presented in all these different fashions, in all these different ways. And then let's teach you a song where you can apply that skill, you know?
Got it.
I just wonder if there are other ways that we can kind of port the methodology over into other subjects. I no doubt believe there are. I would love to talk with other disciplinarians and discuss, honestly, what, in my opinion, is brilliance of just-in-time learning. We didn't create that concept. That was created back in the 70s. This idea of immediate application of the concept that you're learning. And a lot of schools and a lot of people are trying to do that. It's just, I think they're doing it in such a clinical way that it's not fun for the people that are learning. We need it to be fun too.
Yeah.
And so add in gamification in a way that captures the aha moments and feeds that back to the user over and over and over. That's going to make them hungry to learn. That's going to make them excited to learn. Isn't that the goal?
So to create that dopamine response that we spoke about earlier, you're talking about a combination, right? So there's that, there is an element, of course, of the sight reading in skill acquisition. Then you've got the adaptive difficulty, right? Which is making it a little bit more challenging also in real time, right? Unlocking a challenge. And one of the conversations that I've had recently was about ensuring that there's not a huge gap between that you are you ruin your self-confidence, right? So you
So
are, it's a little bit more challenging where you can also build up the confidence, right? Because when we start to think about one in isolation, then it's like, well, how do we overcome the fear of failure when we don't feel like we're prepared now to bring all the elements together? Well, there's unlocking the challenge as you go along. And then, like you say, there's the gamification perspective where you unlock intrinsic rewards, and doing that also in real time. So it's kind of this perfect storm that we're trying to create uh, for persons to acquire a skill. And it's such an important topic because it applies to us as we continue to learn as adults, but also as we bring up little people and we're trying to understand why they're doing what they're doing and realizing that nothing is in isolation. Everything must, and that's a part of this podcast as well, is being intentional means being aware of all of these things and which role they play.
absolutely. Don't set yourself up for failure, right? Don't have
Right.
such a massive bridge, a massive gap between what you want to accomplish here and then what you want to accomplish there. No, break it up. Break it up into tiny little things. I
Mm-hmm.
opened the book. Great. Check mark. Awesome. Fantastic. Give yourself a reward. You did it. Well done. And then
Yes.
move on. You read the first paragraph. Amazing. Literally, if you need to break it up that much, do it, because that'll help your reward systems understand that this is a process and that you need to be able to give yourself those rewards if you need them. We have been trained so much to we need those dopamine hits. This is what the doom scrolling is. Every little video that you have is just another dopamine hit. And
Mm-hmm.
so we need to untrain our brains to have those like long-term gratifications. We need that back in our life, because otherwise these little tiny bits of joy that we get throughout the life, it's just like, it's diminishing returns as you continue on. They're all superficial. They're not fundamental. And so if you break it up into tiny little bits, you are kind of like you're using that doom scrolling mentality to gamify your life. And then slowly over time, you open the gap between accomplishments. Maybe you don't add a reward for yourself when you open the book the next time. Or maybe you don't add,
Right.
maybe it's reading 2 paragraphs instead of 1. You know,
Right.
and so we just slowly but surely increase our attention spans that way. You can't start off
Mm.
doing this huge gap between one or the other. You can't. We're not there. I know for me personally, I am absolutely addicted to my phone and I hate it. And so I have to use what they're doing so that I can convince my brain that an activity is more interesting than sitting on my phone and doom scrolling. I have to
Right.
retrain my brain to enjoy a different activity. It's really messed up, but it's the truth of today. So I would just say, give yourself a break. And
Yeah, and funny enough, we have had a whole episode on that topic alone, how our brains have been rewired, and how I think we have we're like at less. Well, we're definitely at less than 30 seconds now in terms of our attention span. Like
wow.
it's wild, right? And we're checking our phones over 300 times um a day.
Oh
So
my God, is that the
uh
stat? Oh
that's
my
the
God.
stats. And so, yeah, so, and a part of being intentional is having that awareness of where we, you know, where we got captured by technology, right? We're a generation where it was given to us at a very young age, and we didn't ask questions. We took it, we did exactly what the testers, just imagine like there's these big 2 scientists just sitting over the earth saying, let's see what happens when they get this phone in their hand. So that's basically us. So, we also have to bring that awareness into it. But I love that we're now talking about trying to acquire the skills, but realizing that we've also have to retrain ourselves to get that attention back, right? To save our attention a
Yeah.
bit, if I can say that,
God, it's wild. My wife has literally taken Instagram off her phone and YouTube off her phone, and she doesn't go on it. She literally just stopped going on it one day. She did it cold turkey, and I'm like, how? How did you do that? And she's like,
Some
it's
people can
hard.
do that.
You have no
Yeah.
idea. She's thinking about it day in, day out for the first week. Like,
Yeah.
truly, it's a battle every minute of the day not to pick up her phone and not to try to doom scroll or not to download Instagram again or go on her browser and find it. Like, it is a battle, but she did it. She successfully did it for a week, not looking at Instagram, not doing YouTube, not doing TikTok, social media, right?
Yeah.
And her attention span grew, like truly. Literally within a week, she already like doubled her attention span and she was able to do longer tasks because also another thing that I realized throughout the process of building Museflow is that boredom is a good thing.
Yes.
Sit there, be bored, don't do anything, let your mind wander, meditate, do whatever you need to do to just be present and sit there and do nothing. Literally, just try it for 5 minutes, see what happens.
Right.
Your mind will come up with so many ideas. It'll come up with so many things that you want to do. And then it's about executing those things, of course. But like,
right.
Our minds want to grow. Our mind wants to push the boundaries. We really, really want to do that as a species. So let your body do it. Get off of social media and try your best to like be present, and be bored.
Yeah, and one theme that keeps coming up too is ring fencing just your day, right? What you want to do and what you want to accomplish, and so all of it comes together in understanding when your brain does want to learn something and wants to be challenged. What are some of the ways that you can get that, like, give your brain what it wants, give your mind what it wants,
It's really cool if you're able to find those moments and then actually fill them with skill acquisition. That would be that's the goal. We have a couple of users actually that do exactly that. They're retired, or one of them is actually one of them's retired and they just want to like learn something new, and so they're using Museflow that way, which is awesome. It's filling their time. Another one that I've talked to, he has a real difficult job. And he uses Museflow as the opportunity to, between work and at home, to drop into the present, to lower his heart rate. It becomes a meditation at that point.
Right.
And he becomes focused and in the flow for a little bit of time, 15 minutes a day. And that's his gap. That's his break between work and home. And it allows him to be present with his family after that. So he's recognized a moment that was a problem in his life. I'm bringing my work into my home life, and I'm stressed out and I need to find a way to like drop in and be present so that I can be present with my family and enjoy that time. And he found Museflow, and that's been his break. That's been it allows him to drop into the present. And I'm like, that's great. Find tools like that where you can, you recognize a problem that you need to solve, which is, I'm not present. Great. Find a tool that's free, honestly, like, or find a method that works for you that is free. You don't need to spend money. I'm not asking you to do that. No way. Find a tool that works for you though, whether that be by your own creation or by something that's online or whatever, and use that,
Exactly. So as we wrap up the episode today, and again, I have been incredibly just happy and enlightened by this conversation we've had. What's the one thing, if someone does it in the next 24 hours, that puts them in flow with whatever they're trying to learn? What would be like the one thing they should do in the next 24 hours to get into a flow or start to get into a flow?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you want to do. Are you trying to actually acquire skill? And if that's the case, then I think one of the main things that you need to do is understand how you learn best, the way that makes most sense to your brain. So go online, do one of those free tests, and find out your dominant method of skill acquisition, what your body naturally wants and desires, and that you try to then use that methodology when you want to acquire a new skill. If you want to learn how to fish, if you want to be a really good fisherman, then, and you're an auditory learner, cool, you've learned that. Great, you got those two things. You're an auditory learner and you want to learn how to fish better. Great. Go and listen to a fishing podcast. Go and listen to an online course about fishing. Go and listen to the history of fish. Go listen to that book, right? I don't know, things like that. Find ways to capitalize on your natural interests, your natural interest of like, this is the dominant form of skill acquisition that I like, and then try to find ways to use that to your advantage.
That's awesome. So here's what I'm taking away from our episode. The way that we may have been taught to learn is possibly broken. Repetition, one size fits all, it kills motivation and can create dropouts. But when we design learning around our flow states, adaptive challenge, gamification, everything may possibly change for you or a family member or someone that you are focused on today in terms of their learning and skill acquisition. So stay engaged, skills compound, and the process becomes joyful when you decide to learn the way you learn, to figure out the way you learn. So one of the things that I do to end every episode, I think I've done it every episode, so I'm super, super proud, is to end with an affirmation. But it's just a positive way to end every episode so that we are putting out into the world what we want for ourselves. And when we say it loud, whatever you bring out comes back tenfold. And that's what we're sticking with. So today's affirmation is, I'm designed to flow. My brain thrives when challenge meets skill. I reject rigid repetition and embrace adaptive growth. I learn through play, through variation, through immediate feedback. I am not defined by what I've quit. I am powered by what I designed to master. Starting today, I engineer flow. This is my declaration. I am always learning, always growing, always in the zone. And that's our affirmation.
I love it. Oh my God. Can you send that to me? That's
Of course.
incredible.
Of course, I will. And so everyone check out Museflow at museflow.ai. Anything else before we wrap up that you'd like to share with the audience about Museflow or anything that you're working on?
We'd love to give you all a discount code, a coupon code. For anybody who's listening and anybody who wants to, I don't know, maybe throw this in the show notes. I think it'd be really cool if we made it Dope 50. Yeah. And it would give anybody who uses it 50% off for life. Whatever subscription they want to Museflow, whether that be a monthly or the 3-month bundle or an annual subscription, 50% off for life. We're still growing. We just hit an incredible benchmark of being able to actually pay for our overhead in subscriptions.
Oh. Congratulations.
So we're still relatively new, and it takes a while to build a technology like this.
It does.
And so we're continuing to work on it and continuing to build out the ecosystem of features. But again, we're still relatively new. And so if you want to join the bandwagon and come on board and give us feedback if you want to.
I am there. I'm the first to use the code at all.
Great. Join us. Dope 50.
Dope 50.
DOPE 50. We'll get you 50% off.
Perfect. So again, this isn't about practicing harder. It's about designing smarter. And until next time, dreamers and doers, stay in flow and peace.